He waved at me. That's how this whole thing started. Not a big wave, not frantic. Just a slow, easy lift of the hand, like we were neighbors. Like I wasn't staring at him through my own kitchen window. Like he belonged there. The worst part? He was using my coffee mug, the one that said, "World's okayest husband." I got it as a gag gift from my brother-in-law 3 Christmases ago. I never even liked the mug, but it was mine. He held it like he'd held it before, steam curling from the top, his bare chest catching the sun like this was a vacation. I didn't knock on the window, I didn't scream, I didn't move. He smiled, then turned away, just as my wife walked into the frame, wearing my hoodie. No alarms. Let me make one thing clear. This wasn't some dream or one of those dramatic setups you see in movies. It was 7:42 a.m. on a Tuesday. I had just gotten home early from the overnight shift. I wasn't supposed to be back until 9. My texts had gone unread. Her location was still home. She never even locked the side door. I didn't catch them in bed. I didn't need to. It was all there, in the way he exhaled like he'd done it 100 times, in the way she tucked her hair behind her ear like she was 17 again, in the fact that neither of them looked surprised to see me staring through that window. They'd expected me to be gone. What I did. Next, I didn't storm in. I didn't break things. Instead, I did something worse. I quietly walked to my car, backed out of the driveway, and drove to the gas station 4 blocks down. I sat in the lot and stared at the steering wheel for 16 minutes. Then I opened my notes app and started typing everything I had ever ignored. February 3rd. Working late. Came home with glitter on her collarbone. March 11th. That phone call she took in the pantry. Whispering. April 20th. The hotel charge she said was for a friend's bachelorette. Each memory was a nail. I wasn't building a case. I was building a coffin. For my old life. When I came back, the mug was in the sink. He was gone. She was in the living room, hair damp, pretending to watch TV. "Hey, babe," she said, like nothing had happened. I kissed her forehead, nodded, and said I was going to lie down. She didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't know she was already losing me, molecule by molecule. But I knew what I was going to do, and by morning, she'd be crying in that same living room, begging me to stop what I had already started. I didn't sleep that night. She did, soundly, like people do when they think they've gotten away with something. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the dim glow of the fridge, listening to the soft hum of our supposedly perfect little home breathing around me. At 2:13 a.m., I took out a plain white envelope and placed it on the table, empty for now. But I knew what I would fill it with. This wasn't about proving anything to her. This wasn't about confrontation or shouting matches or demands for truth. I already had the truth. It had waved at me from behind my own window. It had worn my hoodie. It had made coffee in my home. No, this was about something else. A goodbye she couldn't predict. The next morning, I acted completely normal. I made eggs. I asked if she needed anything from the store. I kissed her cheek and told her I'd be home late. She didn't even look up from her phone, just mumbled something about yoga. Yoga, right. I drove to a printing place downtown and had 10 photos printed from my phone. Not the obvious kind, no selfies, no screenshots. Just subtle frames I'd captured over the past year. A strange coat on our chair, a wine glass with lipstick that wasn't hers. Her car parked at a hotel she claimed not to know. A shadow I recognized. One of the pictures was from yesterday morning, him in the window, the mug in his hand, that stupid mug. I placed all 10 photos inside the envelope, sealed it, wrote her name on the front in blue ink, Marcy. But I didn't give it to her, not yet. That night, I watched her closely. She was giddy, light. She put on music while making dinner, something she hadn't done in over a year. She danced with the spatula, laughed when she spilled wine. She was happy, and that made it worse. I knew now what kind of person she was when she was truly happy. It wasn't me bringing it out of her. After dinner, I said I had to check something in the garage. Instead, I walked across the street to our neighbor's place, Mrs. Doherty, a retired nurse who watched our house more carefully than any security system could. I asked if she'd seen a man around the house recently, maybe someone dropping something off. She nodded slowly. The tall guy with the arms? Arms? Yeah, the arms, like a fireman. Wore boots, always parked 2 houses down. How often? 3 times last week. Once while you were home, actually. Thought that was strange. She didn't know what she just confirmed. I thanked her, gave her some excuse about checking on the plumbing, and walked back with my heart pounding so hard it made my vision pulse. That night, after she fell asleep, I slid the envelope into her gym bag. No note, no explanation, just truth, waiting quietly. The kind of truth that doesn't knock on the door, the kind that explodes without a sound. She found the envelope at 6:12 a.m. I heard it from the hallway, just the soft gasp followed by the staccato shuffle of her bare feet across the floorboards. She didn't call my name. She didn't knock on the door. She just stood outside the bedroom, breathing through her nose like she'd just run a mile. The air in the house shifted. You could feel the guilt crawling out of her pores. I stayed in bed, eyes open, heart silent. She said nothing at breakfast. Didn't eat, didn't sip her coffee, just sat across from me, motionless, hands in her lap. I watched her fight the urge to speak, to defend herself, to ask questions she already knew the answers to. But I gave her nothing. No confrontation, no satisfaction. And that's when the real cracks began to form. She left for yoga around 7:30, keys trembling in her hand. I knew she wasn't going to yoga. I knew where she'd be. That was the point. The envelope was never meant to start a conversation. It was meant to disable her scripts. She didn't know what I knew. She didn't know if it was everything. That's what made it powerful. But then something happened I didn't expect. I got home that evening and found a note sitting on the dining table. Not handwritten, typed, on my printer paper, folded once, center aligned, like it was trying to be professional. The weird part? I didn't write it. The note simply said, "Stop digging. Not everything you find will make you stronger. CC, one letter, one threat." My pulse quickened. I checked the printer history. Nothing. I checked the trash bin. Empty. I looked around the room like I was suddenly in a thriller. That note didn't come from my wife. She never types. She leaves Post-its, pink and passive-aggressive. She doodles hearts on them. This wasn't her style. So, who the hell was C? Callahan? The guy in the window? I paced for a solid 20 minutes, trying to decide if I was being messed with or if this thing had just entered a new, more dangerous layer. Because now, it wasn't just betrayal. It was games. And I hate games. I took the note and slipped it under a stack of mail. If they were watching me, I wouldn't let them know it worked. But it did. It worked. It got under my skin. The one thing I thought I controlled, my information, my awareness, was suddenly leaking. That night, I checked the house twice before locking up. Every window, every door, every corner. I started to wonder if I was still the one in control of this unraveling, or if I had already been outmaneuvered without realizing it. Because here's the thing. I had a plan. A real one. I hadn't even begun to execute it yet. The photos were just the ignition. But now, with this note, I started wondering if someone else had their own plan. And I was standing in it. I didn't expect her to fight back so soon. The Marcy I knew, at least the version of her that had evolved over the past year, was slippery, indirect, always pushing blame with a smile and masking it as misunderstanding. So, when I came home that Friday evening and found a second envelope tucked neatly on my pillow, not written by me, my heart did something I hadn't felt in years. It stuttered. The envelope was yellow, not white. No name on the front, no handwriting. Inside were 6 photos. Mine. Not pictures of her, or him, or their little rendezvous. Me, alone, unaware. In places I thought I was alone in. Parking lots, grocery store lines, even one of me standing in my own garage, back turned, staring at the breaker box like an idiot. The photos weren't from my phone. They weren't digital. They were film developed, matte finish, cropped perfectly, printed by someone who knew what they were doing. I sat down, fingers suddenly too heavy. My eyes scanned every detail, backgrounds, shadows, reflections, anything that might explain when or how they were taken. But they were clean, silent. Whoever had taken them was close, and had been close for a while. It wasn't paranoia anymore. Someone was tracking me, following, watching, maybe even now. For a few moments, I genuinely couldn't breathe. I had never felt that kind of exposure before. The man in the window wasn't just a symbol anymore. He was part of something bigger. This wasn't just cheating, this was layered, and I was behind. I wanted to confront her. God, I wanted to slam the photos on the table and watch her crumble under the weight of her own secrets. But I didn't. I've learned by now, when you show your cards too early, you don't win the game. So, I buried my panic. That night, She came to bed like everything was normal. She curled up beside me, her leg brushing against mine. Her breathing evened out within minutes, the kind of calm that either comes from innocence or absolute delusion. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Was she the one who left the yellow envelope? Or was there someone else, someone deeper in this mess, someone who didn't care about marriage or guilt or exposure, someone who was invested in keeping me quiet? There was another possibility, one I didn't want to consider, that I had walked into something much worse than an affair, that Callahan wasn't just the other man, but a door into something wider, darker, and deliberate. Around 3 a.m., I rose from bed and walked to the kitchen. I opened the drawer beneath the toaster and pulled out my old recorder from college, a little black device I used to interview authors when I thought I was going to be a journalist. It still worked. I placed it under the couch cushion, just in case. Then I walked outside, barefoot, feeling the cold tiles under me. I stared out into the empty street, the silence so thick it hurt. But there, far back, half a block down, stood a figure next to a parked car, not moving, just watching. I didn't wave, and he didn't smile this time. It took 3 nights for me to work up the nerve to listen to the recording. I told myself I was too busy. I had late shifts, grading to finish, sleep to catch up on. But that was a lie. The truth was, I wasn't ready. Something about placing that recorder under the couch cushion had felt too real, too final. Like once I heard what it captured, there was no going back to the pretend normalcy we'd both been coasting on. But the envelope, the photos of me, the man standing in the dark, all of it was pushing me towards something I hadn't asked for but now couldn't avoid. So, on a quiet Wednesday night, after Marcy had left for her book club, I pulled the recorder from its hiding place. I sat on the edge of the bed, dim lamp on, doors locked. The house was silent in that particular way. You only notice when you're about to discover something life-altering. I pressed play. At first there was just static, a soft, mechanical hum, the kind of room tone you forget exists until you're forced to listen to it. Then, footsteps. Heron. She came into the living room. I could hear the jangle of her keys, the brush of her jacket against the couch as she tossed it down. A long silence. Then, her voice, software casual, like she wasn't hiding anything at all. "Okay," she said. "He's asleep." Another silence. Then a second voice, deeper, calm, with that unnerving confidence I recognized instantly. Callahan. "Does he suspect?" "No," she said. "Not really. I mean, I think he's quieter. But he hasn't said anything. I gave him the yoga lie again." Callahan chuckled, a low, hollow sound that made my skin itch. "He's not stupid, Marcy. He saw me that morning." "I know," she whispered, "but he didn't say a word. He just left. That's what's so creepy about it. He's not confronting me. He's just watching." "Which makes him dangerous," Callahan said flatly. "Silent men are always dangerous, especially when they love you." There was a pause, then a noise I didn't expect, a kiss, wet, slow, then rustling, movement. I closed my eyes. I should have stopped the recording there, but I didn't. He kept talking. "You sure he's not recording anything?" She laughed. "Please, he still uses a flip phone when we travel. He's harmless. Broken maybe, but harmless." I paused the tape. The room spun. She didn't just cheat. She studied me, reduced me to a type. Called me broken, and Callahan. He wasn't just the other man. He was something else. Calculated, strategic. This wasn't passion. This was controlled erosion. I stared at the recorder in my hand and realized what terrified me most. They weren't afraid of me. They should have been, because I wasn't harmless. Not anymore. The next morning, I left a note in her car, folded, anonymous, left on the passenger seat like a whisper. It said only this: "I am watching, but not for the reasons you think." She didn't say a word that day, but I noticed she double-locked the front door that night. She set her alarm for the first time in weeks. She pulled the curtains closed so tightly I could see the fabric trembling. Fear, finally. But I wasn't done. Not even close. It was the smell that finally pulled me down there. Not a bad smell. Just strange. Subtle. The kind of scent that doesn't belong. Like someone opened a box from another life and left it cracked just enough to leak nostalgia and rot. It started 2 days after I listened to the tape. Maybe 3. I would walk through the kitchen and catch it. Metallic, cold, earthy, a scent like rusted keys and cardboard memories. We had a basement, not a finished one, just stone floors, exposed beams, and damp air. A space for storage and spiders. Marcy hated it, always said it felt like a tomb. She used to make me go down there to fetch old Christmas boxes or clean out mouse traps. But sometime in the last year, she stopped mentioning it at all. It became a dead zone in our house, a part of the floor plan no one acknowledged. And until that smell reached me, I hadn't noticed how long it had been since I'd even opened the basement door. That afternoon, while she was at work and I was home alone, I stood at the top of the basement stairs for a long time, staring into the dark like it might stare back. The light switch was temperamental, flickering once before settling into a sickly yellow. I took the steps slowly, counting them in my head. 13. Always 13, though it felt longer that day. The air got colder the further down I went. Not cold like winter, cold like indifference, like a place that had forgotten people entirely. My feet hit the stone, and I stood still, listening. Nothing, just the low electric hum of the dehumidifier I hadn't turned on in months. Then I saw it. A suitcase, not one of ours. We only owned two, both stashed upstairs in the hallway closet. This one was hard-shelled, black, with travel stickers along the side like it had seen countries she never told me about. It was tucked behind the water heater, half covered with a moving blanket. I stared at it for a full minute before touching it. The handle was warm. Inside were clothes, mostly hers, but not like anything she'd worn around me. Satin, lace, silk, expensive labels, lipsticks in unfamiliar shades, a phone charger for a model she didn't own, and tucked between two folded cardigans, a small velvet box. I opened it slowly. Inside was a key. Just one. Simple, brass, unmarked, the kind of key that doesn't open anything in our house. I held it in my hand, and something about the weight of it made my heart pound. Not fast, but deep. Like each beat had to travel farther through something thick and old. Beneath the key was a note, not addressed to me, just a short list written in a rushed hand. Tuesdays 8 to 11. Ask for Vern. No names, no pictures, cash only. I sat down right there on the basement floor. My knees went weak, because this wasn't just infidelity. This was planned, rehearsed, systematic. The Verne note wasn't just instructions. It was logistics. This was a second life, one she'd managed to keep hidden from me while sleeping 6 inches away every night. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn it all. The suitcase, the clothes, the damn key. But I didn't. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was fascinated. What had she gotten herself into? Who was Verna? What did Tuesdays mean? I realized, disturbingly, that I didn't want to leave her. Not yet. I wanted to know how deep it went. What could make a woman like Marcy, who once cried over a dropped plate, build something this cold and careful underneath the life we shared? That night, I placed the key in my pocket and went to bed without saying a word. She curled into me. She sighed like she was safe. She had no idea what I'd found, and no idea what I was about to open. I waited until the following Tuesday to use the key. I hadn't slept right since the basement. I kept waking up around 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, as if my body knew I was getting closer to something I shouldn't touch. Marcy, on the other hand, had begun floating through the week like someone preparing for a performance. Her clothes got more deliberate, her routine more polished, and when she kissed me goodbye that morning, I caught the faintest whiff of something foreign behind her usual perfume. Something floral, expensive, and absolutely not hers. She told me she was spending the evening at a planning session for the spring charity banquet, said it would run late. I kissed her cheek and smiled like I believed every word. She didn't know the key was already in my pocket. She didn't know I had already traced the name Vern to a private club across town that didn't advertise and didn't appear on Google Maps. The kind of place people only found if someone whispered it to them. At 8:03 p.m., I was parked across the street, watching from behind my windshield. The building didn't look like anything special, just a narrow brownstone sandwiched between a closed tailor's shop and a boarded-up bookstore. But the second floor was lit in a warm amber hue, and every few minutes someone would slip in through the unmarked black door with the same behavior. Quick, quiet, deliberate. No one knocked, no one looked back. I waited until 8:41. Then I walked in. The interior surprised me. It wasn't sleazy. It wasn't even dark. The lobby smelled like cedarwood and lavender. There was soft jazz playing from somewhere above. A man in a gray vest greeted me without a smile. His hair was silver, short, and perfect. He didn't ask my name. He didn't check ID. He just looked me up and down and said, "You're early." Room 6. My throat tightened, but I nodded. He slid a small card across the marble counter. It had only 2 things written on it. Room 6, no questions. He pointed to a hallway with velvet walls and soft lighting. I took each step like it might trigger something. My shoes made no sound on the carpet. The hallway smelled like secrets. There were no numbers on the doors, just brass knobs, perfectly polished, each one spaced precisely the same. I counted silently. Room 6 was the last on the left. The key fit the lock with eerie ease. A quiet click. My hand was shaking as I turned the knob and stepped inside. And there she was, Marcy, sitting on the edge of a low leather couch, her back to me, wearing a black dress I had never seen before, short, tight, silk. Her hair pinned up, legs crossed like she was waiting for someone. A glass of red wine balanced perfectly in her hand. She didn't turn around. "Close the door," she said softly, not recognizing my presence. I didn't move. My mind flooded with 1,000 possibilities. Was this a game, a role play, a transaction? I didn't know what this place was yet. A club, a cult, something in between. But whatever it was, she belonged to it, and she never told me. I closed the door, quietly, and sat down across from her, heart pounding in my throat, not sure if she'd look up and realize who I was. She still didn't. Instead, she lifted her eyes toward me, smiling politely, like I was just another stranger in a long line of strangers, and said, "What's your name tonight?" There was a pause after she asked that question, a long one, the kind of pause that hangs between 2 people like a cliff edge. One wrong word, and everything falls. "What's your name tonight?" Her voice was light, playful even, but her eyes were tired. Not the kind of tired that comes from a long day, but from holding up too many masks for too long. She didn't recognize me yet. The lighting was soft, the wine had probably loosened her senses, and she wasn't expecting to see me here. Not in this place, this second life, where she didn't have to be my wife, or anyone's wife. I leaned forward slightly, not to intimidate her, just to look closer. She was beautiful in a way that felt foreign, like a character in a movie I'd never seen but somehow knew the ending to. "Clay," I said. That was all. She blinked. Her hand trembled. The wine glass tilted slightly before she caught it. And then, slowly, her face changed. The layers peeled away. The confidence dropped. The seduction drained out of her eyes. All that was left was something painfully honest. "Clay," she whispered. "How did you—" "I followed the scent of secrets," I said. "Turns out they all lead here." She laughed, but it cracked halfway out of her throat and turned into something closer to a sob. She put the wine down. Her eyes didn't leave mine. "I was going to tell you. I just didn't know how. It was never supposed to be real," I interrupted. "Because it is." Her shoulders sank. The weight of everything, the lies, the compartmentalized months, the decisions she couldn't take back, came crashing into her body all at once. "I was never cheating," she said, and I didn't believe her at first. "Not the way you think. There was no affair. There was no him. There were nights. There were rooms. But it was never about someone else. It was about losing myself. About remembering what it felt like to be wanted, desired, not just needed." I didn't say anything. Not for a long time. My heart was a tangle of anger, confusion, guilt, and, strangely, relief. Because I realized something in that moment. We were both guilty. Not of betrayal, but of silence. Of letting things rot instead of airing them out. Of living parallel lives in the same house and pretending parallel lines would ever meet again. I had pulled away just as much as she had escaped. I had drowned in routine, let her become scenery. I had noticed everything and confronted nothing. "Do you want to leave?" I asked. She nodded once. I stood, reached out my hand, and she took it. We didn't speak as we walked back through the velvet hallway, past the silver-haired man who didn't even blink. The night air was cool, quiet. We got in the car and sat there for a few minutes. She cried softly, but not out of fear, out of exhaustion, out of finally being seen. I didn't forgive her that night, but I saw her, the real her. And for the first time in a long time, I let her see me too. The hurt, the distance, the man who wasn't as harmless as she thought, but who still believed people could choose to return. That was 7 months ago. We're not perfect. We're not pretending anymore either. Therapy, hard talks, relapses in trust. But we made a decision that night, not to erase what happened, but to build something better with the ruins. We burned the photos, we sold the mug, we bought a new toothbrush pack. This time, 2 identical ones. No colors, no signals, just clean starts. Some nights, I still wake up at 3 a.m., but now she's awake too, and when I reach for her, she's already reaching back.